It was silent. What once flourished in this solar system had become nothing more than a dying ember. Its brilliance reduced to ash. Its orbital rings vanished. In the center, a colossal molten sphere of rock bled slowly into the void, each trickle of rock a fading memory of a world that once burned with life. To any observer, it would appear that all life had perished, that this place, smothered in ruin, had nothing left to give. But that assumption would be a grave mistake. Something remained, something unseen, something unfathomable. Another cow. The cow trademark stood motionless on the cracked surface of the dead planet, its scorched hide barely clinging to form. The sky above, if it could still be called a sky, was a hollow darkness. Mountains collapsed in slow motion around him. The crust beneath his hooves split and hissed. His skin was blackened, charred like obsidian, his udders shriveled, lifeless. He did not move. He contemplated. Hatred pulsed through the thick, oily ichor that replaced his blood. Then, a voice. "What now?" asked a familiar, childish tone, its innocence tainted by something unspoken. The cow trademark turned, though he had already sensed the presence. Before him stood Brody, but something about the boy felt off, glitched. "We wait," the cow trademark murmured, voice ragged with age and bitterness. "Everything is finally in motion. All we need now is the catalyst to evolve. One spark to ignite the end." Brody tilted his head. "Haven't you waited enough? This must unfold precisely. A delicate process. One mistake, and everything fractures again," the cow trademark said at last. Brody nodded, and for a moment they both stared into the stars, though the sky no longer held any light. "Where are we, anyway?" Brody asked, his voice quiet. "You never told me." The cow trademark didn't answer at first. When he finally spoke, his words came as a whisper. "This is where I truly stand, where he left me. A place of echoes, of failure." He paused. "I don't wish to think about this place. It reminds me of my own mistakes." Brody blinked. "Oh, okay." He stood quietly for a moment, then, "This is all your fault, you know. Why did you do this to me? To us?" The cow trademark froze. His hooves clenched into the fractured soil as something twisted inside him, but when he turned back, Brody was gone. He turned away, facing the emptiness once more. He shut his red, glowing eyes and exhaled slowly, feeling the deep tremors of the universe. Frail, hollow, terrified, his eyes opened. "Why must you haunt me with my own mistakes?" he muttered, sinking to one knee. His eyes remained closed. The echoes in the void grew louder. Alone in the infinite silence of space, the cow trademark knelt, consumed not by grief, but by purpose. Time propelled forward, as it always does, dragging the universe closer to what must come next. Chapter 1. World War Tim. Meanwhile, on Earth, 5 hours before Timiverse, Aiden's eyes opened slowly, his body lying broken on the pavement. Snow poured down from the sky, blanketing the ground around him with a thick layer of fluff. He sat up with caution as sudden aches and pains pulsated down his spine. How long had he been out? He pondered for a moment, wondering where the pouring rain had gone. Who were those masked men who beat him? He clenched his palms, wanting only vengeance towards his grandmother. She was certainly behind this. However, he needed to figure out where he was first. Aiden stood to his feet slowly, still ensuring that adrenaline wasn't the only factor in aiding his movement. He started walking, his hearing and vision gradually returning. Faint sirens flashed in all directions, his heart rate gradually increasing by the second. Something felt off. Suddenly, his phone began to buzz, catching him off guard. He pulled it out of his pocket with haste and answered. "Jacob?" Aiden asked, with slight relief. "Hey, are you okay?" Jacob exclaimed with urgency. I don't know. I think so," he said, his body still in shock. "I'm on my way, okay? I found your location on my phone. Look, something is very wrong. I don't know what's happening, but it's some kind of war or something." "What the hell? What do you mean a war?" Aiden asked, confused. "Wait, where are your parents?" he asked. "I don't know. They left for a winter trip last week, and I haven't heard from them since." "I hope they're okay," he panicked. "I really hope so too. I'm on my own as well. I think my grandma just tried to kill me, so that's just great. Jesus, Just stay where you are and lay low. I'll be there soon. We gotta get the fuck out of here." Before Aidan could respond, Jacob hung up. Aidan stared at his home screen for a moment as the booms and sirens began to blend into noise around him. Reality was finally sinking in. He suddenly thought to Ethan, wondering if he was okay. Although a terrible friend, his life could be on the line. He tried calling, but it immediately went to his sarcastic voicemail. "Hey, sorry you missed my call. I'm probably either winning a Fortnite competition or in a very important meeting about important stuff or whatever. I'm a busy guy, what can I say? Maybe if you knew my schedule, you wouldn't miss my fucking call. Cheers." Beep. Aidan sighed and shoved his phone back in his pocket. Suddenly, the pavement beneath him began to rumble, knocking him off balance. "Shit, this is bad," Aidan mumbled, panic in his voice. "I need to lay low somewhere." Before he could find a resting point until Jacob arrived, he began to faintly hear something in the distance. A vehicle. Aidan glanced behind him to see a large tank cruising down the neighborhood road. "Shit!" Aidan hissed, lunging into the bushes beside the asphalt. He glared in fear as the large tank treads ominously passed beside him, followed by a convoy of blood-red tagged vehicles scanning the area with rifles. Aidan glanced around, eager to find a better spot to hide, but he was too afraid to move. He stayed put, his mind racing with thoughts. "What do I do? Who the hell are these people?" Aidan pondered. He thought to Jacob, wondering how he'd possibly make it to him in this condition. He tried calling, but there was no answer. "God damn it!" Aidan whispered, knowing that he needed to move. And so he did, resisting every urge in his body to remain hidden from danger. He stayed low, traversing past the street where the tank had passed by, and made his way to a model home. "Yes! Please be unlocked," Aidan said softly to himself as he hastily made his way to the front door. He gave it a light budge. Nothing. Aidan truly began to panic at this point, knowing in his gut that he needed to get out of the streets. He ran to the side of the home and tried all of the windows. He was running out of time. However, just before he thought he'd be in trouble, the back door was cracked open. Without a care, he ran inside and shut the door behind him. It was dark. The only light he could see was from outside the home, as various flashing sirens and signals cast spotlights in the living space. Aidan searched the kitchen, looking for something he could defend himself with. He glanced around, soon realizing it was entirely unfurnished. Suddenly, his eyes gained sight of a wooden plank leaned up against the corner. He picked it up cautiously, avoiding the various nails seeping through one side. He gave a slight nod to himself, figuring this would do. Aidan sank down to the ground slowly, remaining as still and quiet as possible. His heart rate was finally able to calm itself down. He pondered again, this time about his mother. He deeply despised her, but in this very moment needed her comfort. He truly felt alone, unsure that Jacob would make it here alive. He remained still for what seemed like an hour, not moving a muscle, his eyes wide awake. He glanced down at his hands, full of splinters. His grip on the plank was stronger than he anticipated. Before he could think of checking his phone, he heard a sudden noise from the back door. Aidan stood to his feet slowly and readied himself in the shadows of the room. His heart began to spike intensely as he saw a figure enter the home. He remained still until he was truly sure who it was. "Aidan?" Jacob asked with a soft and frail voice. Aidan slowly revealed himself from the dark corner and sighed with relief. "Jesus, you scared the shit out of me," Jacob hissed. "Shh, be quiet," Aidan snapped. "Sorry, I—" Before Jacob could say another word, Aidan hugged him tightly. "It's okay. I'm glad you're all right," said Aidan. "You too." "So, what now?" Jacob asked. "We must find the secret bud," said a distant voice from the shadows. The two of them jumped with fright as Aidan jolted his weapon upright. The two of them backed up to the wall, ready to fight for their lives. However, Aidan raised a brow as soon as the figure came into view. "You again?" Aidan asked, as if he'd seen this figure before. "Do you know him?" Jacob asked. "Hi, Isaac," he spoke loudly, causing Aidan to hastily run over and cover his mouth. "Yes, he's this weirdo who keeps following me around. I'm not sure what his problem is," Aidan whispered back to Jacob. "You're gonna get us killed if you raise your voice like that." "Oh, sorry," said Isaac, his voice muffled by Aidan's hand. "Surely we won't force him to go back outside, right?" Jacob asked, whilst adjusting his glasses. "He's gonna be a problem. We don't have a choice. He's just a kid. Put your emotions aside." Aidan removed his hand from Isaac's mouth, proceeding to wipe it off on the wall next to him. "Just don't be too loud, okay?" Aidan asked. Isaac nodded with determination. So, what did you say earlier? Jacob asked Isaac. The secret bud, Isaac said confidently. What the hell is that? Aidan asked. Beyond the lands, across the Malky River, past the Colsmic Tangerine. That is the secret bud. Aidan and Jacob stood silent for a moment. Is he okay? Jacob whispered to Aidan. I'm not sure we know what you mean, said Jacob with perplexion. Yeah, that's just nonsense, dude, Aidan said with annoyance. Isaac blankly stared at them for a moment, almost as if he hadn't been listening at all. Are you sure we should keep this kid around? Aidan asked Jacob once more. Jacob ignored him. Look, Isaac, right? Could you maybe show us what you mean? Jacob asked. Look, Isaac said with enthusiasm, as he pulled out a dinosaur finger puppet from his pocket and wagged it around. Are you messing with us or something? Aidan asked, very impatient at this point. Dude, chill out, Jacob said with a worried expression. No, dude, he needs to leave us, or I'll remove him from this house myself. Aidan, be quiet, Jacob exclaimed. Suddenly, faint shouting could be heard from outside the home. The three of them rushed to the window to see what was going on. Three masked figures with rifles proceeded to march toward the front door, pointing in their direction. Shit, 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 Aidan hissed. Guys, follow me, Jacob said with urgency as they headed for the back door. As they fled out to the patio, loud bangs came from the door behind them. Get down, Jacob said quietly as he ducked Isaac to the ground in the backyard. Aidan watched in terror as the group of soldiers bashed the door open and searched the living space inside. What do we do? Aidan asked. Don't move, Jacob responded as he dug himself deeper in the snow. Feeling completely buried at this point, he was no longer able to see the soldiers anymore. All he could hear were faint conversations between the masked figures. Search the area. Bring any Tims to me, dead or alive, one of them shouted. Tims? Aidan thought to himself, trying to grasp the situation. The three of them remained as still as possible, waiting for the right time to flee the area. They remained in the field of snow for minutes, now shivering immensely from the frigid temperatures. After the voices and echoes vanished, Aidan raised his head slightly to check his surroundings. We gotta move, come on, Aidan whispered as Jacob and Isaac cautiously sat up. The three of them traversed to the edge of the yard, hopping over the fence. They were faced with a dense grouping of trees in between the homes. It wasn't perfect, but that would be their next resting point. Okay, let's try to find a place to lay low, and we can figure out the rest from... Suddenly, a bright light cast upon the three of them, blinding their vision. You three, identify yourselves now, a woman shouted from afar. The three of them stood still for a moment of pure shock. In Aidan's mind, there was only one option. Run! Aidan shouted. The group blindly dashed into the woods as fast as they could. Hey, stop! Another yelled as they began firing shots around them. Fuck! We're all gonna die! Jacob cried as the three of them ran for their lives. Stay behind me! Aidan shouted from ahead, taking a right deeper into the woods. The soldiers carried on, scanning the dark frosty pines with their advanced rifles. Stop! We don't want to hurt you! Identify yourselves! Voiced the commander. The three of them ignored the soldiers, continuing to sprint into the darkness ahead. Jacob took the lead, his heart pounding out of his chest. Aidan gripped Isaac's wrist tightly, trying not to leave him behind. Come on, guys! Jacob shouted with urgency. Just as they reached a back road in between the trees, an oncoming pickup truck suddenly whipped around the corner. The three of them froze, unable to act, as the vehicle quickly raced toward them. As they readied for impact, the tires let out an ear-piercing screech, barely making a complete stop. The driver's door swung open with haste. A figure stepped out, the three of them unable to see them from the blinding headlights. Jesus, are you kids okay? An older man asked, hesitantly. Please, help us! Aidan cried, as the four of them began to hear shouting from the woods. The trucker glanced to the left, noticing various flashlights approaching. Get in! The man yelled. Everyone made a run for it. The three kids hopped in just in time before the soldiers arrived. Bullets whizzed by left and right, everyone ducking for cover. The four of them remained quiet until the silence of war subsided. What the hell is going on in this town? The man asked himself, terrified. He glared back at the three kids, still in utter shock. Do you all need anything? Water? He asked. Aidan nodded his head, his body now experiencing extreme withdrawal. The man reached for a water bottle from his cup holder and handed it to him. Aidan chugged the water with desperation, emptying it in seconds. "Well, I guess I'll introduce myself just to help ease the tension. I'm Cletus Clyde. Unfortunately, I just so happen to get stuck in the middle of whatever this is." "Are y'all from this town?" he asked. "Yeah," Jacob and Aidan said in unison, whilst Isaac continued to blankly stare out the window. "I see. I used to live around here, but the past few months have caused me to travel back and forth from one place to another. The road is my home, now, especially now more than ever." "Do you have any idea what's happening out there, sir?" Jacob asked. "I'm not sure. One moment, everyone is enjoying a wonderful holiday, and the next, guns blazing. As soon as shit started to go down, I packed my things and booked it without looking back." "We need to find the bud before it's too late," Isaac interrupted, his eyes gazing through Cletus's rear mirror solemnly. "I'm sorry?" Cletus asked with perplexion. "Don't mind him. He has trouble with words." Jacob responded quickly. "Oh, okay. What bud, though? Like a flower or something? Look, man, I don't think he's right in the head. There's no point in trying to reason with him," Aidan explained. "It's a big bud, far, far away. We need to find it before." Isaac stopped for a moment, then pulled out his dinosaur puppet and began playing with it like nothing prior had happened. Cletus scratched his head, unsure of what his words could possibly mean. "Well, I should really be paying attention to the road now. We need to get out of this place as soon as we can," said Cletus as his pickup truck carried on through the dense layers of snow. The drive continued on in silence. Everyone remained tense and vigilant. A black smoke began to cover the atmosphere above, darkening the already dangerous driving conditions. Cletus's eyes narrowed, his headlights not casting enough light on the road ahead. The snow poured on, seeming to gradually intensify by the minute. "I don't think I'll be able to drive in this condition much longer, y'all. We may have to lay low in these woods. Plus, it may help us stay off the radar. The last thing we want is someone following us, like those men earlier," Cletus explained, as the three of them nodded in agreement. Aidan began to doze off in his mind, the voices of conversation muffling around him until it became levelled noise. He stared out the rear window, gazing at the road as it created more distance between him and his hometown. He felt like a drifting soul in a void of unfamiliarity. He continued to stare at the blizzard behind them, almost until his eyes unfocused on everything around him. Suddenly, the cascading snow began to brighten gradually. Aidan blinked a few times, unsure if he was hallucinating. Once he refocused his eyes once more, his heart dropped. They were headlights. "Guys!" Aidan exclaimed, as Cletus immediately recognized what Aidan was referring to from the rearview mirror. "God damn it, I can't accelerate any faster," Cletus shouted, as a vehicle traversed into view. "Oh, you gotta be fucking kidding me," Aidan said, his eyes wide open. "What is it?" Jacob asked. A large RV cruised toward the truck, seemingly moving even faster in their direction. "I've seen that trailer before," Aidan responded. "Oh, shit," said Jacob, finally recognizing who it was. "There you are!" Grandma shouted with her head out the window of the RV, charging head-on toward them. "Hold on," said Cletus, as he slammed the gas pedal with all his force. Grandma glared with menace as she followed closely behind down the dark road. Bullets soared toward them, grazing the side doors and cracking the rear window. The three kids ducked down and shouted in terror. Cletus hastily reached for a shotgun in the glove compartment and began loading. The RV was now only feet behind, shots still firing at them. Cletus stuck his firearm out the window and fired at the driver's window, cracking her windshield severely. Grandma swerved to the right, now being right beside them. Another figure with long dark hair and a beanie covering his eyes peered from the passenger side with a sidearm, damaging the passenger window. "Fucking die, you animals!" Cletus cried as he fired at Clarence, hitting him in the shoulder. He yelped in pain, hiding for cover. "You'll die for that!" Grandma yelled, slamming the RV into the side of the truck. Cletus lost full control of the wheel as he was now hydroplaning on the icy grounds. Grandma fired a perfect shot at Cletus' head, his body immediately collapsing on the wheel. "No!" Aidan shouted as the kids began to truly panic. "Aidan, take the wheel!" Jacob shouted. "Fuck! I don't know how to drive!" Aidan shouted as he attempted to move Cletus's limp corpse aside. Just before Aiden could gain control of the vehicle, Grandma swerved into the side of the truck once more, veering it off the road. The truck crashed into a large spruce tree as an airbag pummeled Aiden in the face, knocking him unconscious. Jacob groaned in pain, his vision hazy, his hearing fuzzy. Jacob slowly crawled his way to Aiden in hopes of seeing his friend intact. Luckily, he seemed to be protected from the airbags deploying. "Aiden? Aiden?" Jacob cried. "Are you okay?" There was no response. "Shit! What do I do?" Jacob asked himself in horror, suddenly hearing faint sounds of multiple tires screeching. Jacob slowly turned to see what was going on out the shattered rear window. A convoy of red-tagged military vehicles now surrounded the RV parked dead center in the road. "Fugitive 446, stand down now!" A soldier yelled as a militia of Jims in advanced and sleek armor plating hopped out of their vehicles. Grandma stepped out of her damaged RV slowly, her hands still tucked away in her robes. "Put your hands up!" now the commander shouted. Grandma grinned with a sinister expression as she suddenly tossed an explosive toward the vehicles. The soldiers panicked, running in all directions. They opened fire, hitting her multiple times. The grenade went off, casting a massive explosion that engulfed the convoy in flames. Multiple screams rang out as Jacob covered his eyes, beginning to sob. Grandma dropped to her knees, glaring up at the commander who was now advancing toward her. "Take care of my boys, now," she said, as she pointed at the wrecked pickup truck beside them. "Burn in hell," the Jim soldier responded coldly, as he fired one last shot at her forehead. Her body dropped to the ground, the white snow now tainted with blood. Clarence suddenly fell out of the RV, attempting to crawl away. The Jims fired at the desperate criminal, his body sinking into the snow. Jacob watched as the militia suddenly began glaring in his direction. "Search the crash site!" one shouted. Jacob panicked as a group of Jims dashed over to the pickup truck and pried the door open. Jacob flinched back and screamed in terror, knowing this was it. However, as some time passed, the soldier spoke to him with a calm voice. "It's okay. We're not going to hurt you. Let's get you out of here, okay?" He slowly opened his eyes to see the Jim lending a hand. Jacob nodded, still hesitant. The soldiers escorted Aiden and Jacob from the crash site and laid them down on stretchers, blood wounds covering their bodies. "Is it them?" one asked, as Jacob began to lose consciousness. "It has to be. Let's bring them to the boss." "He should know," said another, as Jacob gradually drifted off into sleep. Aiden's eyes opened, his body readjusting to his surroundings. He blinked a few times, wondering if he was dreaming. He sat up slowly, immediately thinking to himself that he had blacked out one too many times this Timus. He glanced around him, only to find that he was laying on a medical bed of some sorts. This certainly wasn't like any hospital he's been to before. It was off, oddly advanced. "Jacob?" he asked with a quiet and slurred speech, still completely out of it. He tried sitting up, but his sudden pains kept him bedridden. "Oh, you're awake!" A voice rang out from the end of the room. Aiden glanced beside him to see a man in a crimson-red tuxedo approaching him. "Where am I?" Aiden asked. "It's okay. You're safe now, Aiden," he said calmly. "How do you—" he asked in shock. "Your grandma told me a lot about you," he responded. Aiden's heart sank, feeling suddenly in danger. "Oh, there's no need to worry. We took care of her. Is she dead? We had no choice. I'm sorry." "Oh," Aiden said blankly, unsure if he was happy or not to hear the news. "Wait, how did you know her?" "I'm not sure you're ready for that answer. You need rest." "Rest? I can't just rest with everything that's happened. And you're being awfully vague about everything. Where are we and where are my friends?" Aiden demanded. "Look, I can see why you're confused. I will explain once you're rested." "Fuck this," Aiden said as he stepped off the medical bed and began limping away. "You're hurting. You need to rest." "Shut up," Aiden responded as he continued down a hallway. He abruptly stopped, his eyes widening in shock. In front of him was a spacious window where a view of Earth could be seen right before his eyes. Immensely large spaceships surrounded the vast space around the planet, the two sides firing at one another. "What the fuck?" he mumbled to himself, stepping backward, his heart racing. "You weren't supposed to see that yet," said Jim, as Aiden backed up into him. "What the fuck is happening?" said Aiden, in utter terror and despair. A war has unfolded across the galaxy against our people. The galaxy? Our people? I'm sorry, I can't think clearly right now. Look, Aiden, there is no other way to say this, but this war had to happen. It pains me just as much as you. Time and time again, violence was the only option. Aiden turned to the man with sudden disgust. You did this? He asked, stepping away slowly. Aiden, please listen, he said, reaching his hand out. Where are my friends? I will not ask again, Aiden demanded, rage bubbling up inside him. Friends? Jim asked. In the truck. Did you save them too? They only brought in you and another. He is in bad shape, but recovering. What did he look like? Tall, thin, brown hair with glasses, I think. Why? Oh, thank God. So, you only found us two? Aiden asked, wondering as to where Isaac could have gone. Although annoying, he was worried about him. I'm sorry if we did not recover everyone. It's madness down there, said Jim, continuing to stare ahead at the chaos. Aiden didn't respond. He did not move. Why didn't you just kill us, huh? Just like you're destroying my fucking home. Look, your grandmother, she wasn't all she seemed to be. She used to be a galactic officer for our empire, but has since betrayed us by joining the other side. An officer? And what do you mean about the other side? Aiden asked, as he began to feel dizzy. Suddenly, two officers rushed in just before Jim could further explain. Urgency painted all over their faces. Jim, you need to see this, the commanding officer said blankly, in a loss of words. What is it? Jim asked with annoyance. Please, just hurry, the officer replied. Aiden, stay here, Jim ordered as he watched the three of them sprint down the hallway. Suddenly, an ear-piercing alarm sounded, blinding his senses. What the fuck is happening? Aiden mumbled to himself, feeling as if he could no longer stand. Jim rushed to the cockpit of the mothership, eager to find out what could possibly be occurring. Intercoms blared left and right, shouting over one another in chaos. The three of them reached the main control room, greeted by the view of the dying planet once again. We are getting odd readings on the surface from all units, a Gymgineer shouted from one of the monitors. Earthquakes. Worldwide. What? Jim asked, entirely dumbfounded. Sir? An officer asked, shifting Jim's attention to the window. Right before their eyes, a colossal green quasar blasted from the planet, shooting upward into the stars, obliterating starships in its path. The planet pulsated with visible green shockwave, moving unfathomably fast. What in Jim's name? Jim asked, utterly astonished. The crew glared at the anomaly in pure terror as screams rang out from every intercom around them. Get me eyes on the surface! Now! Jim ordered, as everyone panicked to find surveillance. However, just before they could get their eyes on it, a streak of green energy flew past the spacecraft, disorienting the crew inside. New objective! Track whatever the fuck that was! Jim shouted, feeling as if his grip on control was slipping. Yes, sir! An officer called back, shifting their tracking technology to the streak of green light. Sir, what? You might want to see this. Jim speedily walked over to the monitor, his eyes widening. What is that? Whatever it is, it's humanoid and moving very fast. Deploy the satellite to continue tracking its movement. That's an order, Jim shouted. The officers nodded and the entire room dispersed. Jim stared at his home once more. Sorrow followed by purpose. He felt guilty for the lives lost, but unmatched by the duty he must fulfill. The Tims must be eliminated at all costs. Meanwhile, the North Pole. Moments after Timothy's departure, the planet finally stood still for the first time in hours, the gunfire diminishing, the battle cries softening, and the smoky air dissipating. 3 massive shockwaves have shook the entire surface, both sides of the war halting to examine the mysterious catastrophe. At first, it had seemed that the chaos had ended. However, that was just the beginning. Sheriff Tim's eyes shot open, his body violently jolting awake. He breathed heavily, his heart rate pounding faster than he thought possible. His irises transformed to a dark, unnatural green, mirroring that of Timothy's. He glanced around in shock, attempting to get a grip on his surroundings. What happened? He asked himself, the snowy battlefield empty and silent. He stood to his feet, his uniform now covered in tears and burnt spots. His skin felt as if it was burning alive, yet he felt stronger than ever. "Tim? Louis?" he called out, feeling as if he was abandoned by his comrades. He turned a full 360, frantically scanning his surroundings. Was he dead? Sheriff Tim felt this sudden, uncontrollable rage, his body experiencing unfathomable stress. "They left me to die," he said quietly and twisted, his mind scrambled. He looked down at his hands, his veins pulsating with a green vibrance. The sheriff shouted into the sky, crying for help. "What's happening to me?" he growled, unable to control his emotions. He stumbled to one knee, trauma kicking in. He experienced an array of flashbacks, stinging his mind of the battle. "I need to find them," he mumbled, his voice cracking, getting deeper. Sheriff Tim continued walking, ignoring all signs of aches and pains, traveling into the vast blizzard in search of his lost friends. As he carried on, however, the ground beneath the fallen soldiers behind him began to faintly rumble unnaturally. The rumbles cascaded throughout the planet's crust. The millions of fallen Tims, Jims, and innocent citizens LT behind in the battle began to twitch and reanimate horrifically, ancient energy coursing through their veins with an abrupt and violent rage.